Yeah, so Rashi, I hate to say it, and it's very unfortunate because sometimes it's not even us, right? It is circumstance, but health insurance policies do not cover for most of this stuff. They do not cover for abortions. They do not cover for any other unnatural as they say, they call it unnatural, procedure, which is optional and not something that is a natural part of being a woman. So they don't cover it. Although, having said that, like I said earlier, in case you are with a corporate and have a comprehensive cover, whether it's you or your spouse who's working with a corporate, in most cases, corporate policies are comprehensive. In case there is a situation where you do need an abortion for a reason that, let's assume this is like a third child, for example, or just the fact that you're not ready for it, and they do cover it. So corporate policies do cover for abortion in some cases. Sorry, did I miss some part of your question? I feel like I did. Yeah, and I'll just shed some light on that bit for those who are not familiar with IUD, or as it's called IUCD. It's called intrauterine contraceptive device. So I know a lot of people, a lot of women, mostly, I think the most common like to avoid getting pregnant, the most common thing one uses is a condom. And the more doctors you talk to, there is no 100 proofing any of these things, whether it is condoms, whether it is injections that you can take once in a month or once in a quarter, which cost, I think, between 400 to 800 rupees, apart from what you would pay for the doctor's charges, etc., or this IUCD device. So for those who don't know what this is, like Rashi mentioned, so IUCD is a device of sorts, which is inserted into our body to just provide for contraception, and you can take it for periods of 3 years, 6 years, and 10 years, if I'm not wrong. They are not very expensive. So these devices are actually not very expensive at all. They come between like $1,000 or so. Again, it's with the choice of, without the cost of your gynecologist, because you'll have to make a visit or two. Just the process of, getting that device in your body costs some money. And these things are not covered by any health insurance policy. Fortunately, they're not expensive, but they are not covered by any health insurance policy.
Yeah, so just like an interesting anecdote. So this aspect of women's health not being covered by insurance companies, this has been sort of like a systemic thing over decades, where essentially earlier a lot of the contraception methods like the pill and other devices, they didn't even sort of factor into women's lives because women weren't really working, they weren't getting out there, and so they weren't really looked at as a viable investment option. And now, even though women are definitely seeking these options, and there are, I mean, so many women have gained economic, financial,
Yeah.
I mean, careers, like their entire lives have changed because of contraception.
Yeah.
These methods are still not being covered by health insurance companies, or even being really spoken about, connecting it to their financial independence.
So what I've heard, and again, it's a little awkward for me to even talk about it, but of what I've understood, people several times don't prefer using condoms just because, then the whole experience is not satisfying enough at times. And again, like we talked earlier, the risk still exists. It's not like 100% risk free. But when you do the cost benefit comparison, if you were to think about the cost of condoms over, several periods, several years, say 3 years even, when you just do that cost benefit analysis, it might be better for you to get that IUCD device, because it's literally going to be like 2,500 rupees for that entire process, and it's going to last you for 3 years at the least. Of course, once in every 6 months, 8 months, you will have to go for a checkup. But I think it's more comfortable also for those who are perhaps living in joint families. I know most people are in nuclear families nowadays. It's more comfortable using a condom. Sometimes it's not just the cost, it's not comfortable. How do you dispose it? How do I get it into the house? It's all kinds of problems that I've heard from friends and people I know. So I think IUCD has provided a great alternative. You don't really need to factor as much. It's not very expensive, as do the injections we were talking about. Again, they're not very expensive at all. They're 400 to 600 rupees. So these options are not expensive, but it's ideal to look for ones that are slightly longer, and yeah, you could sort of depend on them. I tell you from my experience, having PCOS, I was recommended to do it. I haven't done it thus far, but I am still being recommended to do it.
So my answer to that from a medical perspective is that it depends on what is your present PCOS, what status it is at, if it's being managed well, if your symptoms are being managed well, if your hormonal levels are in check. What I would encourage is that if you really have a severe form of PCOS and you are requiring multiple medications, have this conversation with your doctor about how hard it's going to be to get pregnant. And if it is, then I would encourage that the sooner you freeze your eggs, the better quality of eggs that we get. To be very frank, the peak fertility period of women, the best time for them to get pregnant is early 20s. And from a pragmatic point of view, it's not possible. So have that conversation, figure out if it's going to be really hard for you to get pregnant, and then definitely consider that option.